What is up, YouTube? Dots Gaming here, and today I'm bringing you guys the next episode of the ESO Fireside Chat Podcast series. And for those of you who have never seen this before, this is a monthly series that I do here on my YouTube channel where I basically talk about some issue or topic or pretty much anything related to the Elder Scrolls Online. And I'm always looking for new topics and new ideas to do for this. So as always, I encourage anybody, if they have any suggestions or anything they want me to talk about, please leave it in the comment section below, and your idea may one day become a fireside chat video. But today's topic is going to be the racial passives tuning that is coming up for what I can only expect is going to be the Q1 DLC. I don't see them releasing their projected changes prior to that. I have to imagine it's going to come with the Q1 DLC. But they talked about in one of their posts on the combat forums that they would like to update the racial passives of the game, and that there's going to be a whole host of changes associated with that, but they were not specific at all. What they said was what I have written down below here. They said, when selecting a race, players should have multiple effective options for any given gameplay role. The combat power provided by each race should be more equalized. Players should also feel a stronger sense of power progression through the racial passives as they level up, and the unique feeling and flavor of each race provided should be retained and enhanced where possible, but remain faithful to the established lore. Now, this sounds all well and good, but I am both very excited and very nervous for these upcoming racial changes. I think that there are definitely some races that could use some buffs, but I am a little nervous about a complete racial overhaul. It doesn't, I don't know. To me, of all the systems in the game that could be looked at or could be fixed, I don't know if necessarily like racial passives is the thing that should have been at the top of the list. I just think that there were a couple of races like Nord, Imperial, kind of Breton, Khajiit, etc. Some races that were kind of lagging behind that could have been buffed or brought up to be more in line with races like Argoni and Redguard and Dunmer. That could have been something to do, but they are choosing to completely rework all of the races, which is what we're going to be seeing, I have to imagine, in the Q1 DLC. But I am a little nervous to see how this is going to go. I love Zos to death, but they tend to be a little aggressive with their changes. They tend to make a lot of changes at once. Instead, I've talked about this in the past, instead of making smaller changes, patch to patch to patch, and kind of seeing how they affect the game. But what kind of confuses me a little bit more about what they said when they made this is the first line and the last line. I almost feel like those kind of contradict each other. Now, by the way, I'm making this video on December 2nd, 2018. I might upload this and make this public, and they might release new information on this, which would be super feels bad. But I'm actually going to release this on 12/3 so that hopefully I could be ahead of the curve. But this is what they said to us. Like I said, when selecting a race, player should have multiple effective options for any given gameplay role, and then the unique feeling and flavor of each race provided should be retained and enhanced when possible, and remain faithful to the established lore. So I'm going to be interested to see how they're going to make, let's say, a race like Breton, or even let's even say High Elf, right? I wonder how they're going to keep High Elf as a potent magicka race, but also make it a viable stamina damage dealing race. Also make it a viable tank race, because it almost sounds to me like, they want you to have multiple effective options. Like, for example, High Elf shouldn't just be magicka DPS. Maybe High Elf should be magicka DPS and healer or something like that, But I wonder how are you going to do that without nerfing the capabilities that a race already has in something? That's what I'm really worried about, is that, and I talked about this on my stream before, I'm very worried that most people are going to feel like their race was nerfed and thus their power went down from a patch. That's what I'm most worried about. Like, again, just using High Elf as an example, right? Let's say you play a High Elf Mag Sork and they start to tune high elves to be more viable as, again, let's say a healer, right? They might take some stuff, you know, whether it be magic or recovery or some of your damage away, and move some stuff around. And like I said, maybe even reduce those percentages and give some healing benefit. So yeah, that's all well and good. If you play a high elf healer, hooray, you're going to get a little bit of a buff there. But if you're a high elf damage dealer, you're going to see your class nerfed. You're going to see your character nerfed. You know, same thing with Redguard. If they make Redguard a more viable tanking race, you are going to see, as a Redguard stamina damage dealer, you're probably going to see some nerfs. I can't imagine that they're going to retain the original power of a lot of these races while adding new power to them to make them usable in another role. And that's what I'm nervous for. I don't want to see it's just like patch after patch. It's like I feel like things are getting nerfed and nerfed and nerfed. And this is not, you know, this is something that, you know, if your class gets nerfed, right, a lot of times you can try on some new gear sets, maybe change a Mundus Stone, change your gear weight, work around the changes to find a way to make your class still viable and work. But if your race gets nerfed and it's not working in the context of your build, and you're either going to have to obviously completely change your build to either achieve this, to achieve the same stats you might want to, or you're going to have to pay money to race change to a race that better fits what you're looking to do. And race changes are not cheap in ESO. They're not cheap. So this is kind of where I'm mainly coming from with the point of nervousness, is that I feel like for ZeniMax to achieve, and again, I could be wrong. They could have some sort of idea and some sort of system in place that is going to feel, you know, make the races still feel the way they do now, but add some more power and some more capabilities to the races as a way for them to be able to fulfill other roles. But like I said, what makes me nervous the most is that if you change the way a lot of, especially the pure races, like, and when I say pure, I mean like, they're good at like one thing really well. Like, you know, like Argonian can fit so many different roles. High Elf is like Mage DPS. Redguard is Stam DPS. You know, like those races, and which are the ones that generally people use for damage dealers, I feel like you're going to feel significantly weakened in order to better balance out your racial passive template to allow for other roles. And that, like I said, I'm worried about that, because you don't want to feel every patch nerfed. Now, races like, you know, a race mainly like Argonian, I definitely see getting knocked down a peg, because Argonian is like best in slot for tanks and healers. And even Mage DPS for PvP, Argonians are an amazing choice. And what are they going to do to Argonians to maybe make them more viable PvE damage dealers? How hard is that going to hit tanking and healing? You know, that's what I don't know. Their first and fourth point to me sound a bit contradictory. They want to retain and enhance the feeling and flavor of each race, but maintain established to lore, but give them multiple effective options. And like I said, you know, I know I'm kind of going to repeat myself with this, but it to me, it sounds like, you know, a race like a Redguard would be a stamina damage dealer and a tank. A high elf may be a magic damage dealer and a healer. How are you going to allow the race, I just hit my mic, sorry about that. How are you going to allow the race to do those multiple roles, but not hit its original combat power? And I don't think that's going to happen unless they have some sort of system that maybe I'm not thinking of. But, you know, assuming that racial passives are relatively similar to the way they are now in game, I definitely see a lot of people feeling like their characters were nerfed after this patch. And I am interested to see how they're going to approach this and do this. And this is just something I wanted to talk about in a video like this, just because it is something that I am definitely worried about and concerned about. And I'll be interested to see how it affects those. Now, those of you who play like a lower tiered race, like maybe Nord, Breton, Khajiit isn't as viable now in the current state of the game if you compare it to the sustained races like Bosmer, Redguard. Those races are definitely, I think, going to benefit for the most part. I feel like they'll see some benefit where they're going to get some added power in other areas where they don't currently have it to basically keep up with the top tier races. But you know, who knows? Like, again, a Breton, for example, Bretons are like tankier mages, right? Bretons might get some extra defensive power in certain areas, but then again, as magic and damage dealers, are they still going to be able to compete with the high elf? It's, you know, or the Dunmer. It's going to be interesting to see how they balance it. And the way that they're talking about it is definitely going to be a challenging way to go about it. And I'm also interested what they're going to do when they say players should feel a stronger sense of power progression through the racial passives as they level up. So it almost makes you wonder, are they going to increase the percentages of what we currently have, as opposed, you know, are they going to make racial passives stronger? Are we going to actually maybe even see buffs to our characters? You know, instead of them working with similar percentages they have now, are they going to keep a lot of the passives the way they are, but maybe add an additional passive slot that gives us those other paths, like maybe, again, looking at Redguard, maybe they give us another passive that will be a more tank passive, thus retaining the original power as a stamina damage dealer, but also adding that additional tanking power to allow them to be viable tanks. That might be a good way to prevent players from feeling nerfed, but still accomplish the goal that they have in point number 1 here, to allow a race to do multiple effective options for you know, any gameplay role. So I'm interested. I'm interested to see what they're going to do here, and I feel like that would be a good way to do it. Maybe add another racial passive slot option. I think right now most races, if I off the top of my head, I think they have 4. Let me double check that. ESO racial passives. I just want to make sure that I'm not misspeaking here. Yeah, every race has 4 racials if you count that first one. So maybe they add a 5th one and allow that 5th one to kind of be a secondary role thing to make each race more viable in another role. Again, you know, not only will that give them stronger power progression through the racials, that'll allow people to fulfill multiple roles, maintain and enhance the unique feeling and power of each race, and you could also, by tuning the numbers of the existing ones, equalize the races. So that's my idea on what they should do. Kind of came up with that as I was talking here, I'm not gonna lie. But I think that'd be a good way. Add a 5th racial slot for another passive, like I said, kind of maybe fulfill another role. But I'm interested to hear what you guys think. What do you think about the upcoming racial changes? What do you guys think they should do it? Do you think I have a good idea here? Or do you maybe have a different idea or a different interpretation of how they should approach this situation? I'd really, really love to hear your guys' thoughts. I know this was a shorter video today, but this was an interesting topic that got a lot people asking me a lot of questions about it. So I wanted to make a quick fireside chat video on it. And if you guys enjoyed this episode, I'd appreciate if you slapped a like on it. Like I said in the beginning of the video, if you have any topic suggestions or things you would like for me to talk about in upcoming episodes, please leave a comment below. And like I said, maybe your comment could become the next ESO Fireside Chat. To be able to keep up with what I do here on the YouTube channel, be sure to hit that sub button as well as hit the bell to make sure you're notified when I post videos here on YouTube. I want to thank you guys so much for watching this episode of the ESO Fireside Chat. As always, I'm Dots Gaming, and I'll see you in the next one.